Perfect. All right, well, I will pass it off to Alice, who will do her introduction as our first career panelist.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Alice Murphy. I work at Avalon Consulting, and that is a direct marketing fundraising agency that works with nonprofits and mission-based organizations on fundraising through strategy and direct mail, email, telemarketing, those types of things. My position is a data analyst, so I don't work so much on the strategy side of things, but I work on the analytical side of things. So I help our clients understand how their programs are doing and make decisions based on data and the analyses that we provide. I am a University of Michigan graduate. I studied organizational studies and environmental studies at the University of Michigan. So kind of very different from what I'm doing now. No like data science background in my college experience, but I did do some sort of data focused research work on corporate social responsibility while I was in college, which kind of got me interested in using data to tell stories and make decisions. So that's kind of how I developed the interest. And then when I moved to DC after graduating, I was just looking for a job that made me feel like I was doing good work in the world and making a meaningful impact, which is sort of what led me to nonprofits and then eventually Avalon. And I started out kind of as a pretty entry-level like data management position, which just used a lot, was mostly Excel based. So that was something that I could do because I had experience with Excel from college. And then through more like technical training on the job and then also just like online training, I got more technical skills. And so now I'm a data analyst and I work on more technical analytics products that we provide for our clients, and then also work on developing new things as well. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll kick it over to Julia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Warnock, and I am an account executive at Lautman, Maska, Neill and Company. And as Georgina said, we're a full service direct response agency for nonprofits. And like Jordana, I'm on the account side of things. And in my role as an account executive, I help keep all of our mailings moving along from start to finish, help with the strategies and some of the creative processes as well. I graduated from Colby College, a small liberal arts school in the middle of nowhere in Maine, where I was an international relations and Spanish double major with a minor in music. So very different trajectory based on the position that I'm in now. But I love it at Lautman. I just celebrated my 2-year anniversary 2 days ago. So very exciting. But post-college, I had an internship at a PR firm here in DC. I really liked the project management aspect to it, building the client relationships. Then I did 2 years in sales, did not particularly enjoy that. And after that, I knew I wanted to get back to something where I was building client relationships. I wanted to do something that was mission driven, perhaps some nonprofit work, and ended up at Lautman. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thanks, Julia. Liz.
Hello, everyone. I'm Liz Dean. I currently am working at PMG, which is a production management group. I've been there for about 1 year and 3 months now. It's been a great experience so far. I come from Salisbury University. I studied public relations and strategic communication with a minor in marketing. I had no idea that I would be in production come out of college. I was actually more interested in like digital work, digital marketing and stuff like that. I got introduced to this industry. I actually did the DMAW Collegiate Maxis competition. And through that, I was responsible for kind of more like the direct mail segment of it. And then so from there, I kind of just had an interest in direct mail and then after college was applying for a bunch of jobs, and PMG just happened to be the winner. But it's been a great experience, I would say, throughout college. I took a class, it was called Content Creation and Inbound Marketing. Within that, it kind of gives you like real world experience. And through that, I learned so much. A lot of like the things I learned, I applied just in my day-to-day working at PMG. No day is the same. So it kind of just prepared me for a little bit of everything, and it's been a great experience, and that class definitely helped a lot with this. So
it's great. Well, clearly we all have different backgrounds, interesting career trajectories, kind of what we see this a lot in the industry. And I love how we are all kind of representing different areas of direct response. So we have data, we have account management with creative and strategy, we have production. But Liz, you are kind of, out of all of us, the one who had the most tangible experience in your university years of being exposed to direct marketing in this world. So could you speak a little bit about your major and how you got into your marketing classes and kind of what drew you to that area?
So my major, I was public relations and strategic communication. I minored in marketing, as I said. I feel like sometimes those kind of go like hand in hand, depending on what you want to do with your public relations degree. But specifically the class I took, content creation and inbound marketing, it was one of like the electives for my minor. And like everyone in the business school who was in like the marketing field, they had talked like raved about how great it was. And my current roommate, she was, or at the time, she was a TA for the class. And so I'd seen like kind of like the work she would do. It's all based upon like real world experience. So what we would do is we would like monitor and run a full web page. It's called Our First Job Search. And on those, like we would come up with like weekly tips and tricks on like, if you had anything like as when you were graduating, if there was tips on how to look for a job and tips on like resumes and stuff like that. We would do blog posts, all kinds of cool stuff. I was, like I said, more focused on digital. So I was kind of like running the background of the webpage, stuff like that. And then when I'd finished up that class is when I'd become a TA for it. And that's how I got looped into DMAW, Collegiate Maxis. And the Maxis competition definitely helped with my day-to-day experience now. So
that's great. And for all the professors who may not be familiar with our DMAW Maxi competition, what we do is we emulate a competition that we do in the direct marketing world where folks submit different direct response packages, whether that be mail or email. There's usually a good story behind it, like similar to maybe something Michelle was talking about of, we had a huge problem. We were spending way too much money on acquisition and we tested this brand new package and oh my gosh, it doubled response rate and it's our new control. And this was a huge win. So there's this competition in the industry and we do something similar for groups at universities. They get to kind of do a mock Maxi competition, which is really fun. And I love hearing about, you said a couple of things that I think resonated a lot, which was word of mouth and people chattering and talking about classes that are really awesome or things that, people think are going to really help set them up for success later on after college. Personally listening to, I was like, oh gosh, I wish back in the day, I wish someone had told me about a marketing class. I think sometimes it's hard, whether you're at a small liberal arts school or a bigger school, that sometimes with your major, you do get a little siloed into being only able to take courses or classes that pertain to your major, or you may not be able to kind of test out the waters and just get your feet wet in other areas. So I don't know, Julia or Alice, if, thinking back to your college days, if you had the opportunity to take any marketing classes or if you had a chance to kind of dabble outside your major. But I know for me, I'm just thinking like, gosh, I would have loved to take a marketing class in college and learn more about this before I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, I was thinking while Liz was talking too, that one of the things that I wish that I had had more experience with was marketing. I feel like in my head when I was in college, like marketing was one very specific thing. And I didn't even like know about this industry at all. And so like the idea that it could be applied in this context was like totally foreign to me. So I think like maybe if I had had more experience in marketing, I could have gotten more exposure to like what all of the different ways that it could be applied. So that's definitely something that I wish I had taken more advantage of in college.
Yeah, ditto. I also have never had the opportunity to take any sort of marketing, public relations classes, what have you. And like you were saying, Jordana, I just based on my school was definitely siloed into specific programs, specific types of classes, which definitely has its pros and cons, but I would have loved to just hear more about what marketing is in general. Same with the idea of like consulting, like I do work for like a type of consulting firm, and just learning sort of that type of lingo, I think would have also been really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, there are so many, I think what's great about this industry is it does bring in a lot of people from different backgrounds. And I think there are certain skills that we do learn in school, that even if we'd never been exposed to this or taken a marketing class, that set us up for success. And I know for me as an international affairs major, I wrote a lot. I was writing papers all the time. And I know in my career now I write a lot of copy. And while writing for university is different than direct mail, just having some of those skill sets under my belt, I think have definitely helped me in my career. So I don't know if you all had any other examples of that, of things you learned maybe in school that you found really helpful as you entered this career path.
I can jump in. Echoing what you were saying, Jordana, about writing. I think that has really helped with not just copywriting, but just like editing copywriting, which is what I do a lot of right now. And whether it's like looking for grammar or just like looking to see how a piece flows, it's obviously very different than an essay I would write in college, but I think that background has been really helpful. And also for just writing emails in general. That's obviously not something we really do in college, especially if you're emailing a client or emailing someone higher up. I think having just like, basic writing skills that I developed in college has been really helpful. And then another sort of more soft skill I would say is I loved, at least at Colby, we had really small class sizes. And I feel like I built really strong relationships with my professors and had a lot of one-on-one conversations, was called to speak on in class a lot if there were like 4 other people in class. And I think those public speaking skills have been really useful in this job, whether it's communicating with clients, with my supervisor, or networking within the industry in general. I found that I feel like the direct mail space is really tight knit. And the last 2 years, I feel like I've been to different industry events and gotten to network with folks outside of Lautman. And I think a lot of that skill came from those tight knit college classes where I got the opportunity to sort of learn how to speak and how to be confident in myself when I speak. So I'd say that's definitely the major skill that I took away from college.
Yeah, and I know and I had friends who were, GW was a big school. I was in the international affairs school. I had a lot of friends in the business school, and they did so many group projects and were constantly working on decks and presentations. And I was like, what, this is so foreign to me. I don't even know what a PowerPoint deck is. I just write 8-page essays. But that's also something, as you were talking about, kind of these soft skills, I think such a perk about being in marketing or in the business school or business classes is more of that collaboration and those projects. And I think that's something I kind of didn't have. And I see some colleagues in the industry who have that background. And I think that's just, again, whether you're presenting internally at your companies or with clients, at a conference, having those skill sets, I think are really invaluable too. So one other example I just thought of. Well, oh yeah, go ahead, Alice.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say similar to just like learning how to like make a PowerPoint presentation and like do a presentation from the like data perspective side of things. I found the research experience that I had very valuable because it helped me learn how to communicate data ideas to people, which is like a huge part of my job, because data literacy can like really span a huge swath depending on who you're talking to, whether it's on the client side or internal or whatever somebody's position might be. So just kind of learning how to communicate data clearly to people in a way that is useful for them was something that I took away.
Yeah, that's definitely I know that's a big part of probably all of our jobs in some way or another. And that's definitely a skill I know that I had to really exercise that muscle in my brain and learn, because that's not an easy thing. And this industry is so data driven, as you saw in all the examples today. I mean, whether that be with testing, audiences, segmentation, there's such a data science behind what we do that, you know, even just having a baseline sounds so silly, but even just having a baseline of like what an A/B test is, like why we would split a file in half and give half of them this package and half of them this package, and learning how we evaluate a winner, a loser, you know, statistical significance. So totally agree with you on that. And yes, Rob, anyone jump in with questions for sure.
Okay, so you kind of hit on something that I wanted to ask about. So the failures in math in high school, kind of as we come out. Okay, so our students have a lot to catch up on, and so there's this fear of the math side of it. And as we're in our classes and we're talking so much about data and analysis, that then it's scary. Can I succeed in the direct response industry when I have this fear of math? How could I sell your industry to my students? I try to take away that fear of math, but it's always there. That can they succeed with that fear of I'm not very good at math? I don't know if I can succeed there.
I'm gonna nod. I just have to jump in with a giant yes. I am not particularly great at math. I had a really scary math teacher in 7th grade that scarred me for life, and I have stayed away from math ever since then. With that said, there are so many tools, and Alice can definitely back me up on this, as can probably Julia and Liz, but there are so many tools that help us in our day-to-day. As I said, I've been in this industry for 10 years. I still have a cheat sheet on my desktop of how to create certain calculations and formulas, because there are so many different calculations, at least on the account side, that we're doing, like cost to acquire a donor, net per donor acquired, that I know these things, I do, but sometimes I need a little cheat sheet just to make sure I'm using the right formula. I think Excel is also, I know it plays a big role in our life, and definitely Liz and Alice, Julia jump in, but I think technology has evolved so much that I don't think there's any expectation that you need to really do the hard skill math. Like, we have tools to help us.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that and say like my majors in college were like kind of like liberal arts, like not very like technical. I guess like I chose to do my research focused on data, but like I certainly did not have to. So I guess just my knowledge going into this industry and into this job were like I knew how to use Excel basically, and I was pretty good at being organized. And like I think those things are like can get you really far from like an entry-level position. So like being obviously like if somebody's afraid of math, they're probably not going to like go towards the data analyst side of things, but just in general in an industry like this, I think like as long as you like are pretty organized and like maybe have a basic knowledge of how Excel works, I think you can get pretty far. So, and there's so many like online resources and just like learning that you do on the job to like get further, and yeah, you learn really fast once you're actually doing it.
Yeah, and Alice, you really nailed, not to take us off on a tangent, but you really nailed when you said there's just some skills, like inherent qualities and skills that I think a lot of us have in this industry. And I will use Julia as an example. As Julia said, like she didn't have, she came to Lautman at an entry-level position. She didn't have direct response or fundraising skills under her belt, but she was in sales. And for someone to come in to our company and interview and talk with clients and have this presence about her that she was just so comfortable from being in sales, just really comfortable, like picking up the phone and calling a client, presenting at staff meeting, offering, jumping in to offer to do something. And I think we all saw those qualities in Julia and we were like, oh, wow, like, even though her background doesn't really align with like what we do, like she's showing qualities that would really set her up for success in this position. And I think that really is kind of the key here is like, there are so many, your students, their skill sets and their strengths. And I think as Alice said, like being organized, being able to hit deadlines and follow schedules, juggling multiple projects at once, being a little, at least on the account side, like being a little extroverted and, being able to talk with people. I know a big part of like Julie and I's job is talking with clients and presenting with clients and, really being comfortable having those types of communications. But Liz or, Alice, I know from the production side or the data side, like what other kind of overarching skill sets would you find set people up for success in your areas?
I can go. I know sometimes like multitasking, has been the most important quality. Like I'm so blessed that I'm a multitasker because especially like specifically in production, there's so much stuff going on. Like you'll be at a data stage for one job, another one you're just now bidding out. Another job is like wrapping up or getting like setups and all that type of thing. So definitely multitasking has been like my favorite quality and one that I've been like, well, I actually am a multitasker now that I have this job. But
yeah, Rob, that was a great question. Does anyone else have any questions? No.
You should probably guys to come up with like a list to send, and so I can quote to my students. I just, where every time they say, oh, the project that we just had was so hard to coordinate. We have so many other things going on. And I'll be like, here's the slide from people from the industry. This is what you'll be doing for the rest of your life. And so that's, that will be probably helpful, hopefully.
Yeah, I think on every side, we do deal with that multitasking and juggling of multiple projects and deadlines. And it is, that's a skill, that's a hard skill to really get under your belt. But I think being in school and having, you're not just taking one class at a time, you're taking multiple classes, you have multiple deadlines and projects, even within your classes. You're working on group projects, you're doing things together, you're managing other people's time. And, I think too, if like you see folks that are taking that initiative and taking that, group project leader role or, really excelling there, I think those are the type of people that would do really well in this industry. Do you all feel, professors, that at your universities, the folks that are taking your classes are primarily like marketing? I know some of you teach for marketing minors, but like are just marketing majors or business majors, or do you feel that there are people with other focus areas attending your classes?
So one of the, at least in marketing, one of the barriers is generally the first marketing course is junior level. So by the time the students would take a marketing course, they've gotten deep into their own majors and they may not choose to shift to a minor. We've got like a marketing class for entrepreneurs. It's no prerequisite. They can't go toward the degree though. But it's got to be. So yeah, you would, but sometimes they have to make that choice a junior year, but they're already committed to what their major is going to be. And so that can be hard to come to your marketing class.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I know actually at GW, we had this great program for graduates. That was, I think you could audit any class for free as a graduate. And so when I was, prior to being at Lautman, I was doing fundraising and communications for a very small nonprofit. And I just realized some like skill set areas that I wish I had more experience in. So I audited a social media marketing class, which was really interesting. I got to do that. I was probably 2 years out of school, and it was part of the business school. And again, I had like no marketing experience, but it was really neat to audit the class and just learn. And I felt like with that, I gained so much. I just like learned so much, and I was really eager to learn. I was really excited, but I learned a lot of information. And in my prior life, I was doing more like social media. And, you know, like 10 years ago, that was kind of up and coming. And this was like the first class on social media. But I think opportunities like that too. You know, I don't know if other universities offer programs like that, but I think that's a really interesting way to like thinking about alumni too, whether that be, you know, marketing majors or not, but just, I also think too, like folks will start a job or a career and not be happy and be like, oh, this is actually not what I really want to do. But I do wonder if there's more opportunities for like postgraduate work of, you know, more exposure to the direct response world or the marketing world to help, you know, guide folks in different directions.
I kind of feel that, at least at the university level, that getting people interested in marketing at freshman and sophomore before kind of while they're still doing all their gen ed, that needs to be there, because by the time, because they're not committed to their majors and they're not waiting around, you know. And if there's, I don't know if that's the role of the DMAW, but more entry level stuff to get people interested those first and second years of college. Because I often tell my advisees, you know, you're not going to get into your first marketing class till you're a junior. So we got to find you ways to connect to your field before then, because I won't see you for 2 years, right? So in class. And so I think that's maybe how we can hook them at that earlier level, because they can't take their first junior level marketing course.
That is interesting. And I wonder if that's I just wonder, you know, it seems like kind of a common thread across the ground, but if there was a way to do some more like intro classes, or not even classes, but just opportunities, you know, speakers, or I think last year we talked about one of the professors had, I think, a speaker from the direct response world or something come to one of their, you know, as after hours, but they struggled with attendance. And we talked about like, well, how do you get folks in? Word of mouth? What do you do? Offer pizza, free food? But, you know, ways to engage your, as you said, with younger students, to just expose them. And I think that's part of the beauty of being a freshman and sophomore in college, is this is like brand new. You get to kind of explore what you want to do. So I agree with you. I think the more we do that, the better.
I think our minor in marketing is bringing more people from other parts of the university into the business school, but it's certainly not a gold rush, so to speak. But there are students who are taking advantage of that minor in marketing to add on to their other degrees.
That's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty much like the poster child for that one.
Yeah.
Mine was in public relations, and I definitely took advantage of my marketing minor more so than public relations. I was more into like the business school side of things than anything. So I will also say, I wish that when I was in school, like within like the marketing track, I wish there was more for like more classes built on direct marketing. I feel like everything was just content creation, digital, and like we're in a world of digital and everything's on the web these days. But yeah, I think in college, I really wish like I had taken a course on like direct marketing. I just feel like it would have been cool to like learn about it a little bit more before I did DMAW.
Definitely. Especially, I think, I know we've talked about this in a few earlier sessions, but I think when you're in college, you're so focused on digital, you're just of a different generation, and you're paying your bills online, you're renewing your subscriptions online, you're doing everything online. And I know, like, once I got into this industry, like, one of my favorite things to do is when I go home for the holidays is I like ransack my parents' mail and I see what they get. And I'm like taking samples back, and I'm like, oh, like, Dad, you got this, like, how do you feel about this? Like, what? And he's like, oh, I'm not gonna give to that. Don't they know I give online? And I'm like, yes, they do, but they also mail you. But I agree. I think, like, learning more, not just nonprofit direct marketing, but even for-profit direct marketing. I mean, we've talked about it. There's so many different types of direct marketing that I think I agree, like, some more exposure to that and not just the focus on the digital would be really, really great to have more of.
Yeah, when I got the job with Lautman, and honestly, during my interview process, I don't think I fully had an understanding of like what direct marketing even was. When I applied, I definitely didn't. I was like, oh, they work with nonprofits, I'll apply. And that was actually on Indeed. And I was searching for jobs on Indeed and Idealist in the sort of nonprofit marketing world. But yeah, just echoing what's been said, just some sort of exposure to direct marketing. I look back and a lot of my friends after graduation all went into a marketing role despite not studying marketing in college. Like, it's just something that is a very popular industry. And just so having some more like basic guidelines and understanding is something I always wish that I had.
Well, let me ask this. Let's imagine we can't change the courses to direct marketing, but how would you put, as the DMAW, how would you put direct marketing into the courses we have now? So how can I get a module of direct marketing that'll really engage them and give them what they need? Like, what would that look like to you?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Probably can't answer that fully right now. And Liz, please chime in if you have ideas. But I mean, we would need like, I think you could have like a little mini curriculum built in and go over. I know, like, we have there's so many like direct marketing 101s. Like, I feel like I've attended over the years so many different like webinars and sessions, but kind of just like a down and dirty, like like a little mini couple class or week course of like, what direct marketing is, the different avenues you could go in, really boiling down to what that entails. But I think there's something there. Like, you could probably do a little crash course.
Well, I think that kind of hits your mission, right? So, like, how can we get it in the classroom?
How do I get that for you? How do I get that for you, right?
Yeah, because that would help me be able to funnel people to your industry, and then we both achieve our goals. So
Rob, this is Amy. I just wanted to let you know that, after today, I'll be sending all of the professors who attended kind of a list of who attended. And, we're not in person, but you do have a network here. So perhaps reaching out to some of the other professors. I know that Michael Clayton does a class. Now, I think it's an integrated class, but he uses our collegiate Maxi presentation, our case study, if you will, in the classroom, and they spend the semester sort of using that, and they're looking, direct as a piece of that. So, maybe talking with him. I know Irina from Salisbury, who was Liz's, professor, she uses it with marketing students, but they're just, a lot of them are either they were TA in her case, or they're just part of a club. And they do it kind of in their free time. So there may be ways to work it in, and I would just utilize this network of professors because they may have some really good suggestions.
I think that's a great idea, Amy. I think using our Maxis and our former winner case studies, I think that's is a great competition is always great, because it, they students seem to love that. It was interesting as you were talking about that before you asked the question. I was going to ask professors, and I think the answer is going to be no. Does anybody teach marketing? So direct marketing, I mean, marketing is marketing, right? It's all about results. Does anybody teach the metrics of marketing in your class, or is it all about tactics? Because once people understand the metrics and because we're all about measurement, right? We're measurement folks. Marketers are measurers. And we're also very competitive. You're always trying to beat your results. So I think I'll come back to that question, but I also think, a little module could be something as simple as what you saw earlier, Rob, which is that testing piece, because that's really what it's about. And people loved to see tests. And I think students would too. So that could be some way to bring together, explain what the measurements, what are the things we measure as marketers, and then how do we get there, using a combination of marketing strategy, audience research, and creative.
I'll say that would definitely have drawn me to it. Being and now on the data side of things, like I think that I always kind of, when thinking about marketing, when I was in college, I always kind of thought like, oh, like I'm not creative enough for that kind of work. But when you think about it, it is really just like a lot of like measuring and like figuring out what the results are and making recommendations based on results. So, which does appeal to me a lot. So I think you could get different types of thinkers in different ways by having that angle.
And I think really what it comes down to, as you said, is there are so many different avenues in this industry. I mean, I know I said it earlier, but you have folks on the back end like Alice, like really focusing her career on the numbers and the metrics and the measurement. You have people like me and Julia who are strategizing, we're using those numbers that Alice is producing to drive our strategies, to drive our creative. We're the ones kind of strategizing and brainstorming and coming up with the content. You have Liz, who's physically getting the mail out the door and ensuring that our strategies are being executed, ensuring that, this great direct mail piece that we thought up of like can actually get produced. And there are so many different roles within this industry. And while it is such a tight-knit industry and community, there are really so many different aspects. Even our agency has graphic designers. I know all of our graphic designers didn't get started by designing mail. Who does? But we also other things, we have a finance department. We have people that keep our company running. So I think it kind of also is the bigger picture of thinking of this kind of small world, but with a lot of different avenues and possibilities that really attract people with a lot of different interests and skill sets. Any other thoughts?
I actually have a session in one of my the experimentation sessions. I don't know, Rob, but that's going to help, where knowing that a lot of students don't like math, and I don't try to get to a lot of analytics in there. But what I found very helpful is to actually the conversation about control versus test, figure out how you calculate the lift, and which is, you can do it in a very basic level without kind of going into statistical analysis, complication and statistical significance, or any of that, just general business sense, right? And having the conversation, when they see the numbers, oh, it's going to be profitable, we're going to execute this promotion. I'm like, okay, let's think about in the real world. How much did it cost you to execute it? What did you have to do to actually get it out of the door? And so when we start getting those conversations, oh, we're actually losing money. And I found this just not necessarily using a lot of math sometimes, but just kind of just thinking through the process helps students kind of understand why it's important to measure everything, track everything, and actually calculate. Even simple back of the napkin envelope kind of like calculations are helpful, even if you don't know statistics or any of that. And that's how I teach this component, and it's literally just half of my lecture to go through the math of that. And that's it. I don't know if that's gonna, funnel people into the industry this way, but at least kind of like I get some exposure, because I don't think we have a lot of classes that talks a lot about, different other metrics and measures. That's, back to that question. We do have marketing analytics classes, but not a lot of students, I think, taking those kind of classes. So.
Yeah, I think those real life examples are great. I mean, we kind of like what Michelle was showing today with all of those acquisition tests. It's funny, especially with more like junior level employees that are learning, how to do these basic calculations or how to measure success. I think the tried and true one is like thinking of a direct mail package, and you create this brand new package. Maybe it's a little jazzier than your control. Maybe it does have more color or a premium. And the best is when you go to look at results, and you may all be familiar, but all of our mail results, like everything is coded and tracked, and we get all these gifts back. And as Liz said, we are so data driven. We get to see all these results, and we can see it in so many different views. But up front, that new package may have really gotten more gifts in, or boosted response, or raised more money. But then when you plug in the cost of the package and you look at that net, that net revenue, was there a loss? Was there a hit? So I think even like, as Tatiana said, like just basic, like, okay, up front, this looked like it did really well, but how much money did the organization spend on this package? From a net perspective, is this really worth it? And that kind of goes back to like what we talked about earlier, is those, bringing it kind of, again, bigger picture to students of like, what are the goals here? Can we afford, to take a hit on net? What do we really need to get more bodies in the door? The more bodies we get, could we offset that additional cost? So I think those real life examples make the math a little less scary, and make it a lot more tangible to understand. And it's more fun. I think it's fun to guess, what like Michelle was doing earlier, like it is fun to see what our gut thinks is going to work, or, if it did work, did it really work, based on what our goal was. So I agree. I think those real life examples are extremely helpful.
Also, to just kind of add in something, I remember specifically in content creation, inbound marketing, the question about how to like kind of put it into like your courses and stuff. A lot of times we would like have like guest speakers come in, and that was always so fun because you're not doing like the same old regular classroom work. But even when it like got switched over to like virtual and stuff, we would, I think there's like a couple sessions you guys had going on, the DMAW specifically, that I think like if we join them, it would be extra credit and stuff like that. So I feel like this is another good resource to use like for something like this.
I love the extra credit idea. I know that's come up in the past, but you're right. Guest speakers, extra credit, really giving folks the opportunity to get more engaged. And I think anytime, I mean, I know I'm not a professor, but I was in school at some point, and I know I used to always try to aim for that extra credit. I think that's a great incentive.
Yeah, I feel you're like really on like you're almost to an A. There's a couple extra 3 points.
Yeah. You make a big difference. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I know we have a bit of time, but we usually have 1 or 2 more speakers. We're a smaller bunch today, so I know we don't need to fill up the whole time if there's nothing else. But I just want to thank Julia, Liz, Alice for joining us today. It's always so great to hear other people's perspectives, and clearly it brings me back to a few years ago, excuse me, when I entered this industry, and it was always a really fun conversation to have. So thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, all the attendees. We're so happy to have you here. A survey will be coming out soon. We'd love to get your opinions on how we can do things differently or better. And we look forward to maybe being in person next year. Wouldn't that be nice? So great. It's great to have you here. Appreciate it.